a haunted beach house, and an ant farm glitch are just two of the stories that we are going to read today. What's up, glitches? I'm Auntie Matrix, and people send me their weird, unexplainable, true stories to this email address, and I share those with you. I have thousands of unread emails in my inbox from people about things like glitches in the Matrix, dreams, the paranormal, and aliens. So if you're into that kind of stuff, hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you never miss a video. Sit back, grab a snack, and let's get weird. I went shopping in the future. Hi, Auntie Matrix. Hi! I have been a glitch of yours since almost the beginning. I love everything you do and sincerely appreciate how much you truly help us by sharing our strange stories with like-minded friends. Oh, I love you. If you guys didn't know, my fans are called my glitches. My story happened on a typical shopping trip with my mom on a regular afternoon last winter, 2023. We decided to go to BJ's Wholesale, which is like a smaller Costco if you've never heard of it. We were shopping for a birthday gift for my twin boys. Shortly before the toy section, we saw a big display of really nice basketballs. We picked a good one and a few other toys, and we headed to the checkout. Once there, the cashier had a hard time ringing up the basketball. In fact, she couldn't find it anywhere in the system. I went back to get another ball to find a price, but the entire display was gone. I searched all around the toy area, and the place where the ball display was now had something completely different there. I knew it was the same spot because it was next to an aisle with huge stuffed animals that I really liked. I told the cashier that I couldn't find the display, sounding completely bonkers, I'm sure, so she sent another associate to find the basketballs for me. The other associate returned shortly after, looking bewildered, said that she couldn't find it either. The two women looked at us and asked if $20 sounded good, and we agreed. Thinking that was super weird, we shrugged it off and went along with our day. Fast forward 2 weeks, and my kids are driving me crazy fighting over that damn basketball. Why didn't I buy 2 basketballs? I went back to BJ's hoping to find another ball like it, and there was the very same basketball display that I saw 2 weeks earlier. Same place, everything. In fact, everything was exactly the same as if it was the other week. Not me freaking out or anything, but I bolted my ass to the checkout counter as fast as I could. There was a different cashier from the other week. This lady was much younger. The basketball rang up with no problem, just a little more than $20 since she didn't have to guess a price. I've heard of portals and time slips before, but never a portal to a time slip in the BJ's toy department. Did that really happen? Nah, right? That was so crazy that you couldn't find the display. I was like, okay, you couldn't find the display. You probably just didn't know where it was. But then the other associate also couldn't find the basketball display, and the basketball would not ring up. Weird. And then you go back and it's there and it rings up it does sound like you shopped in the future. Maybe those basketballs, maybe there's like a little timeline overlap and you were in like a future timeline was there with the basketballs and you were able to buy one from the future. I don't know. Visit from my best friend. Hi, my name is Laura and I love your page. I love you, Laura. I have a story for you. One of my best friends was murdered in 2017. Oh my God, that got dark so fast. We lost her in the end of June and her birthday is towards the end of July, so those 2 months always come with a heaviness on my heart. Well, in 2021, the Friday before her birthday, I laid down atop of my bed to take a quick nap. I couldn't have been asleep for more than 20 minutes when I woke up to see her sitting next to me on my bed. I sat up so quickly and she hugged me so tightly around my stomach. This dream was in the present time. I knew she was gone and that she must have come to visit me somehow. I was in the same clothes that I fell asleep in and everything in my bedroom was in the same place as it was before I fell asleep. I can still feel her hug me whenever I think about that dream. I was so excited to see her. I talk to her frequently and she always sends me signs to let me know that she's with me, but this was the first time I physically saw her since she passed. As she and I began laughing and hugging, I quickly scanned my room to make sure this was exactly happening and not just an amazing dream. As I looked over at my closet, I noticed a little boy with a big smile on his face waving at us. He couldn't have been older than 6 or 7 years old. He had yellow shorts on, a blue t-shirt, and brunette hair. I don't think I've ever seen this little boy outside of this visit, but I would remember him. I looked at my friend and asked, "Who is that?" And she replied saying, "That is my son." Right away, I looked at her and said, "Girl, there's no way. You haven't been gone long enough to have a son." We both continued to laugh and hug while she waved back at the little boy. I never really remember my dreams, so I kept telling myself, don't forget this. This is a gift. Don't forget a second of it. Just then I heard another voice coming from the hallway. In a deep and unfamiliar voice, I heard, "We have to go. We have to go now. We have to go before she remembers." Just as I was about to ask, "Who is that?" she hugged me one last time and said, "I'm always here," and then I woke up. I'm so grateful for her visit and that I am able to remember it all so vividly. I still wonder who that little boy was, who that voice in the hallway was, and what he meant by, "We have to go before she remembers." What do you think? I don't know what to think. First of all, I'm so sorry for your loss. Second of all, I don't know what to think. Okay, so she was saying that that was her son with her. Maybe that was her son in spirit who would have been her son in real life if her life had not been taken. For example, I had a session with a psychic, and one of the things they told me was that I have another son waiting if I wanted it, but I didn't have to have him. And I said, no, I didn't want any more kids in this lifetime. And she said, okay, but he's just waiting, just so you know he's there. So maybe that was the deal. Maybe that's the son that she would have had in her lifetime. As far as the voice, it said like, we have to go. I wonder if that was a spirit guide of some sort or a guide of some sort that was maybe allowing the friend to come into the dream. But I don't know why he would say like, we have to go before she remembers. Maybe they don't want us remembering. Who wouldn't want us remembering though? I'm not sure. I don't know. That was a really cool though. Thank you so much for sharing. What do you guys think? Alien abduction. Hi, Auntie Matrix. Hi. Love watching your videos and figured I'd finally share mine with you. This story may be a little long. We love the long ones. This experience happened to me when I was about 12 to 13 years old in 2008, back in the reservation I grew up on. This place rarely has UFO encounters or sightings. During one night, I was sitting on the couch watching TV with my younger siblings while my mom was out on the back deck having a cigarette. She then suddenly opens the door and calls all of the siblings outside to look at what she's seeing and to come quick. I have 5 siblings, 2 sisters, 1 older, 1 younger, and 2 brothers, 1 older, 1 younger, so I'm smack dab in the middle child. I got up and ran to the back door. I was the first one of my siblings to run out. She points up to the clear night sky, so I look up and I notice 3 red dots about 2 miles away from us, hovering in one spot and slightly turning. I've heard about aliens before, but I didn't think I'd actually see a UFO in my lifetime, but there it was. By then, all of us kids were outside looking. They got scared and went back in, but I stayed outside by myself just staring at it, not believing my eyes. I eventually go back inside, and by the time I was about to shut the door, the UFO was gone. That night, I had the most vivid dream. I swear to God it was real. To get a clearer picture of the story, I sleep alone in my own room at this time. I went to bed, but this dream wasn't like my usual dreams. In the dream, I woke up on this cold, hard metal table with one light that was shining down on me, kind of like the lights at the dentist, but this one was 50 times brighter. I couldn't move at all. I felt paralyzed, and the only thing I could move were my eyes. The room was dark, minus the bright light on me. At this point, I was scared and trying to panic when suddenly a big, round, gray head with big black covered eyes popped into my view, looking down at me from beside the light. Then another head opposite of that other, then another, and then another. I counted 4 in total before passing back out. I woke back up in my bed so confused, scared, and this sudden feeling of hot on my back on the left side. I lifted up my shirt to feel if I slept on anything to make my back burn the way that it was, and I felt bumps on my back. It hurt just to have my shirt rubbing on it. The only person I went to tell about my back burning and my dream was my mom, because she was the first to see the UFO and maybe she has some answers. So I got up and I went walking to the kitchen while holding the back of my shirt so it doesn't rub on my back. My mom asked why I'm holding my shirt like that, and I went over to show her why. Her first reaction was, "Who burned you?" I kept thinking, burned? My back is burned? Then she said, "You didn't have this yesterday?" I told her no, and that it just started hurting this morning, and I also told her about my dream. I think she believed I've been abducted but didn't want to scare me, so she told me that it was just a dream, but I told her it felt real, and I don't remember throughout my 12 to 13 years of life me getting burned on the back. My hand, yes, but my back, no. I'm sure I would have remembered that, especially if it was recent. I have not told anyone until my husband, because who's going to believe me? We believe you! To this day, I still have that mark, and every now and then it burns. Since that dream, the place where I've got my burn, my feeling around it is numb. I can't feel a thing an inch around the burn. I'll send a picture of my burn, not a birthmark, and I'll also be sending you a screenshot and a short video I've watched last weekend about alien abduction and burn marks. It shows the same mark that I have. I've gaslit myself into not believing aliens were real until these past couple of years. Since then, I've been terrified of them, but lately have been watching alien abduction videos, and the things I've witnessed and have been through is what they would be talking about with actual abductees. So at least I know that I'm not alone, and thankful to have a husband who believes in this type of stuff and the paranormal. This isn't my last UFO sighting. I'll be sure to send you my other experiences at a later date. Thank you for reading. Let's look at the pictures. Okay, so I'm assuming this is the picture of hers on her back. It does, I see why she said not a birthmark, because it does look a little bit like it could be a birthmark, but if it wasn't there before, and if it hurts to the touch, that is a very crazy, if I'm like zooming in on this because I'm trying to see the shape of it. It's not like any specific shape, I don't think. That's very interesting. And so this, I think, is the picture from the video that she had watched. People attacked by blood-sucking alien. And this is the person's. It looks very similar. It's hard to tell. I can't zoom in any more than that because it is an old picture, but it does look very similar. And this is the video.
Victims report that these burns were caused when the light made contact with their skin. But the wounds are unlike any burns the young doctor has treated before.
As marcas causadas pelas queimaduras,
The marks caused by the burns turned black suddenly, as if they were burns that had been around for 10 days or so. However, many times it had only been 10 minutes since they were made.
That is very interesting. So there are other people with similar things. It sounds like they were talking about light making the burns. I wonder if it has to do with them touching you. Maybe they were like light being aliens, but why would that hurt? I don't think that would hurt. I don't know. I literally have no idea. All speculation, friends. Maybe it was an instrument of some sort that made the burn. I wonder if the burn has significance. I wonder if it's covering up a tracking device. Who knows? But this is a crazy story. Thank you so much for sharing. Has anybody else experienced this? Short exorcism prayer worked on sleep paralysis. Hi, Auntie Matrix. Hi! I love your energy and how you read all the content you've chosen to share with us. Can't get enough of it. Yes. Thank you for creating a safe space for all of us who's experienced inexplicable phenomenons without judgment. You're awesome. You're awesome. I love you. Thank you for sharing yours. I'm an occasional lucid dreamer, and every once in a blue moon, I dream of sleep paralysis. But this specific sleep paralysis was not your usual setting where you're just in bed unable to move. What happens is, yes, I am paralyzed, but I immediately realize I'm dreaming. I'll close my eyes and picture that I'm in bed. When I open them, I'd feel relieved to have woken up and get up off to the bed to leave the room until I realize something is off in my surrounding and putting two and two together how this can't be real, so I must still be dreaming. The moment this happens, I'd close my eyes again like Dorothy clicking her heels, but I'm repeatedly chanting, I'm in my bed, I'm in my bed, I'm in my bed, I'm in my bed. And once again, there I lay on my back bed, stuck and unable to move again. I'd struggle until I can move again. Then stand up relieved, leave the room until something abnormal happens and I'll realize I'm still stuck in the dream. This used to happen to me when I was younger. It is very frustrating and sometimes kind of scary. It went on a loop maybe 30 to 50 times until I finally woke up. I've never had a more exhausting dream than that. Yes, yes. I'm curious if anyone's experienced the same ordeal before. It felt like forever, LOL. Anywho, I never really considered that sleep paralysis could be evil, but I've discovered a prayer that my grandpa used to teach us more than 30 years ago. He told my parents and my brother and me, as we were all applying for a U.S. tourist visa, if you pray this, whatever you want, it'll be given to you. We prayed it, we got approved, so maybe it worked? Who knows? The magic prayer. 20 years fast forward, I start reading into exorcisms and actually got curious. Wait, that was the prayer that he taught us when I was only 5 years old? Because it was in Latin and we never understood what we were saying, LOL. It turned out it wasn't a prayer to get what you want. It was a short exorcism prayer. Now, I can't read Latin, so I don't know what this says. Vade retro satana, maybe? Step back, Satan. It dawned on me while I had sleep paralysis one night that what if this is evil? I could do an experiment to see if saying the prayer works, so I tried to speak it. However, I couldn't move my mouth. No consonant could be audibly pronounced. My lips barely moved, and desperate as I was, incredibly frustrated, I decided to just utter the vowel syllable by syllable. If you heard me, you wouldn't be able to comprehend a word I'd spoken, but I mustered on. P.S. I wouldn't read this without learning how to pronounce it right first, but this is the prayer and its meaning. I'm not going to attempt to read this in Latin because I don't know how to pronounce it, so I'm just going to read the English part of it. Let the Holy Cross be my light. Let the dragon be my guide. Step away, Satan. Do not tempt me with vain things. What you feed me is evil. You drink the poison yourself. I wonder if this is what Sam and Dean say. It's basically resisting evil, kicking it out, and actually ordering the evil spirit to go drink the poison yourself because I'm not taking that. The precise moment I spoke the last syllable of the prayer, as frustratingly bound and immovable as I was, suddenly I was free. I was already awake before saying the prayer, but I just couldn't move. After finishing it, I immediately stood up, completely shaken but relieved. I have no idea if the prayer worked or if this was all in my head where I subconsciously believed it would stop the paralysis and it was all psychosomatic, so of course I'd be free the moment I finished the prayer. That's a very real possibility, except I was skeptical starting it. It was an experiment. I didn't know if it was evil, but somehow this random thought crossed my mind that what if it is evil? And if it is, then it'll be susceptible to the prayer. Otherwise, it shouldn't be affected by it at all. I've also tried to say this prayer when dogs are howling in our neighborhood. It usually goes on for a couple of minutes when our street will have dogs howling in groups, gradually moving from the far left to the right, but it goes completely silent after I say the prayer. I did that only once though, and it was around 3 a.m. I was just curious if people could try to say it themselves, the ones who go through sleep paralysis and become aware that it's a dream, if they can say the prayer as an experiment to see if it works. I'm scatterbrained, so apologies for my messy email, but thank you for reading this. Thank you for sharing. That is really, really cool. So I don't know if sleep paralysis itself is evil, but I know that in a lot of cases, when people are experiencing sleep paralysis, they are also experiencing sleep paralysis demons or entities, either seeing them in the room, seeing them move around, or physically feeling them on top of them, holding them down, pressure on their chest. So I'm not sure if sleep paralysis, if that's always the case, and maybe you just aren't aware of the actual demon or entity or being that is doing it to you, because you didn't describe feeling like anyone was holding you down, and you didn't describe seeing anything or experiencing anything like that, but yet the prayer still worked for you. And you're right, yes, it could have been in your head and it could have been like a placebo effect, but maybe it wasn't. And I think that's a great experiment. So guys, here it is right here. Take a screenshot of this, learn how to say it if you have sleep paralysis issues, and try it. Let us know if it works. 20 years later, I heard the truth. First off, I'm a huge fan. Thank you. I've had a few unexplainable experiences in my life, but this one hits hardest to me. I'm 29 now, but this all started when I was younger. My stepdad decided to join the Army, and we ended up moving to Fort Bragg, North Carolina. We lived in apartments on base, which was a huge life change for me considering I'm from a very small town in the mountains on the Virginia and Kentucky border. This was in 2001 to 2003, and I learned more as we lived there over the span of 3 years. Since I was young, I've always loved horror movies and all things scary, and always been a believer of the supernatural because my aunt and pawpaw always told me about all of their encounters they themselves have experienced. Now, my mom, sister, and dad not so much until we moved there. My dad was first to see it and told my mom, but they never mentioned it to me or my sister. Till the day my mom asked me to run upstairs and grab her pocket. I'm assuming it was our second year there, so 2002, I was 7 or 8. I went up the stairs past my room to end the hall where my sister's room was, and directly to the left was the bathroom, and to the right was my parents' room. As I turned into my parents' room, something caught my attention out of the corner of my eye. I took a step back and I turned to the left to see a little girl with long dark hair sitting on my sister's makeup mirror chair. And as I stood there, the hair on the back of my neck stood up and she turned her head and looked at me. I felt nothing but fear and hightailed it down the stairs, crying and telling my mom what I just saw. She turned and looked at my dad, and his face told me all I needed to know. I knew he knew, and he stood up and took her to the kitchen, and I just stayed with my sister because I was in shock pretty much. After that, I slept with them the rest of the time that we lived there. Now, I can't recall exactly when they told me the stories, but it was obviously after we moved. My dad was home alone one day, and he was in the bath and left the door open. Well, if you remember, the bathroom is directly across from my parents' room, and my sister's room would be directly to the left. He looked up to see the girl come out of his room and go into my sister's room. My sister and mom never saw her, but they did hear someone or something going up and down the stairs while dad was at work and I was in school. My sister was homeschooled. We were not the only ones to see or hear her. I was on the couch asleep, and a neighbor girl that I played with came to get me, but when she got there, my mom informed her that I was asleep, to which she turned her head and said, I was just waving at her from the window just then from guess where? My sister's room. So fast forward, I'm 26, pregnant with my third child, and camping in the middle of nowhere in Craig County, Virginia. No power, just the forest and a tent and family. So obviously, ghost stories at the campfire, and Pawpaw finishes his experiences with ghosts. So I tell mine. When I'm done, my mother drops a freaking bombshell on me and told people that there was a little girl that was found hanged in the building out back of the apartment. I about fainted and told her she never told that to me, to which she argued that she had. So when we get back, and my sister and I visit my mom, and I ask her if mom ever told her that, to which she replies with a completely shocked no. Another one that sticks is I was probably in 4th grade back in my small mountain town, and my mom and I were on our way home. Now, this was during the day, and that's important. As the radio was playing and I was just looking out the window, we rounded a curve, to which I seen a bright, round object in the sky, but it was more hovering above the trees. When I say it was taking up the entire area of the treetops from the sky, it was from one side of the road to a good 50 yards past a field to the other tree line. It was like a giant light, no visible openings, windows, or anything, but it was like staring at a light bulb until your eyes cross and it's almost a bright blur, except I was fully aware that this was real and I was seeing it, and instead of freaking out, I was in complete awe of this thing and didn't acknowledge my mom at all until we got halfway around the curve and it completely disappeared. So this literally happened so fast that if you weren't looking out the window or driving, you wouldn't have seen it. I slowly leaned back into my seat and waited a second and just looked at my mom and said, "Did you see that?" To which she replied, "Yes." I asked her what it was. She was completely shocked and said, "I really don't know." And that's the only time we talked about it until this year, 2023, when I was telling my nephews, which they thought I was insane until they asked my mom, to which they shut up. Because once again, my mom claims to be a non-believer and she admitted to seeing and not being able to explain it. Okay, last one. All right, so this is really like 3 stories in one, you lucky ducks. I moved into my husband's grandmother's home when I was pregnant with our second child, and I always felt as though I was being watched, especially while I was in bed. I felt like something from the bathroom was looking at me or doorway to the living room, but was never scared, just had that feeling, but never mentioned it or asked my husband about the past, especially because he is a true non-believer and believes none of my stories. Anyways, fast forward to October when our second son was still crawling and trying to climb everything at 7 months old. I had a baby pumpkin and he wanted it so bad, played with it for a little bit, but I took it and moved it into the kitchen table, which was across a little barricade I made to keep him in the living room. Very important. I decided it was okay to go to the bathroom, which is literally right behind my kitchen table and across the hall of my 2-year-old, which I can clearly see from the toilet, and let my 7-month-old stay in the living room to play because I just had to pee. Well, I heard a thump and waited for the cry, and not hearing one, I hurried even more and got in there, to which I see my 7-month-old son with the baby pumpkin in his hands in the living room, and the barricade was untouched. So I know for a fact that he didn't get it, and I know my 2-year-old had not left his toys because I watched him the entire time. We were the only people in the home. When my husband got home, I asked him if anyone had actually died in the house, to which he replied, his grandmother, and he asked me why. I told him everything, and he told me I'm crazy and he had to have gotten it himself, or our eldest gave it to him and laughed it off. At this time, he couldn't stay standing, especially not with a pumpkin in his hands. Anyways, I just waited and said out loud to Mama, please do not do that again. And I hope she enjoys watching them grow up in her home, but I'd appreciate it if she could watch from the heavens. And after that, I've never had the feeling of anyone watching me again. We have been here 6, almost 7 years now, and I know that she just wanted the great-grandbaby to have his way. I have more, but they can be for another time. Thank you for taking the time to read my experiences, and I hope maybe others can let me know if they have ever seen anything in the sky like me and my mom. It's the only UFO experience I've ever had and still stumped on it. Once again, huge fan, and please never stop. Oh, I'll never stop. I can't ever stop. I have so many stories to read. Let's recap. Number 1, you had a ghost in your house. That's so creepy that your friend saw and thought it was you in the window waving. Number 2, funny you're talking about a giant UFO, because in the last YouTube video I did, there was another story about a giant UFO, but your giant UFO was basically just light, you said, like looking into the sun or something, and their giant UFO, they said, was like metal, but it was like the size of a football field, which I think is so crazy. So there are apparently multiple giant UFOs, so someone else definitely has experienced a giant UFO, at least one other person. And number 3, fully believe that grandma or great-grandma wanted to give your son the toy. What else could it have been? There was only you guys in the house. You were watching your one son, your other one couldn't have moved it, didn't move the barricade. I think that's very sweet. And I'm so glad that she listened when you said, like, it's cool, you can watch, but please don't do that shit anymore because it scares me. Your words are powerful, friends. Don't forget it. Glitch in the ant farm? Hi, Auntie Matrix. Hi. Your videos have been popping up on my Facebook feed nonstop for like 3 to 4 weeks, and I've been hooked. Yes. I've never really had an outlandish experience and always kind of envied those who have until today. I'll jump right in because my mind is literally all over the place right now. Please help me understand what happened. This past Christmas, my mom thought to buy my 3-year-old daughter one of those gel ant farms. I like the idea because I got the same one when I was younger, and my kiddo is just into stuff like that right now. Bugs, farts, poop, etc. So the ant farm arrives in the mail a week and a half before Christmas, and my mom and I open up the package just to make sure it has all of its components. Everything is there. However, this is when we learn that we have to order the ants separately. No big deal though. We order the ants and they arrive a few days later. Oh my God, you literally order ants to put in an ant farm? I don't know why that creeps me out. In the days between the ant farm getting here and the ants themselves arriving, my younger sister, also an adult now, has flown down to visit us for Christmas. While she's here, the ants come in the mail. My little sister calls me to the front room and she's like, "Hey, Mom got a package." I think nothing of the package for a few hours because Christmas time, we're getting a lot of packages at the house until I realize it's probably those ants that we ordered. I open the envelope addressed to my mom and sure enough, inside there are 2 tubes of ants. Tubes that, this is really skeeving me out, guys. I'm cool with most bugs and I'm cool with ants, but like thinking about a lot of little ants just crawling everywhere. Tubes that look like the ones you hold your blood in when you get it drawn at the doctor. So I'm in the kitchen. I grab the ant farm from its box, empty the ants into the farm, and then stash the ant farm into a cabinet in the laundry room. I wanted them to start tunneling before my daughter saw it on Christmas and obviously didn't want my daughter to find it until Christmas, LOL. After I did this, my daughter comes out of wherever she was playing with my little sister and I think to myself, whew, that was a close one. I almost got caught. I take my daughter out to the park and come back home like an hour or so later. When we get home from the park, my little sister approaches me and whispers to me, "Come look at this." She leads me into the laundry room and opens the cabinet door where I had put the ant farm and she shows me the ant farm. She had also poked like 4 long holes in the blue gel. Apparently you're supposed to poke holes in the gel so the ants have someplace to begin tunneling. This is something that I forgot to do when I was setting the thing up. So I said, "Oh, cool. Yeah, I forgot about that part." My mom then chimes in and goes, "And some of the ants escaped. It almost turned bad." So I laugh, but I think to myself, that makes sense because I put a lot of ants in there, LOL. So it's Christmas now and my daughter sees the ants and is blown away, LOL. Overall, she's very happy with her 40 new pet ants. My little sister leaves here the day after Christmas. Fast forward to today, same sister who visited and boyfriend call me on FaceTime and ask to see how much the ants have tunneled. I show her the farm and she gets excited and starts explaining to her boyfriend how funny it was helping my mom put those ants into that farm. I was confused and I told her, "No, but I put those ants in when you were playing with my kiddo." She looks even more confused than me and explained to me that while I was at the park with my daughter, her and my mom had opened up not only the envelope with the ants in it, but also the ant farm itself, put it together, added the ants in, and then took it to the laundry room where they had hid it in the cabinet. Stop. What? Her and I go back and forth for like 20 minutes comparing stories. She says there were no ants in the farm when she and my mom added them and that the ant farm itself was sitting in the kitchen table in its box. I explained that I had taken it out of its box from the kitchen table, added the ants on the corner of the kitchen counter, and then put it in the laundry room cabinet. We then get my mom on the phone to try to confirm one of the stories. She confirmed that her and my little sister added the ants to the farm. There's no way I completely imagined myself putting the ants into the farm, right? I distinctly remember even what I was thinking while I was doing it. I believe my sister and I both did it, but I just don't have an explanation how. Thoughts? That's so I was like, where is this story going? Okay, there's an ant farm. And then when the sister was like, "Come here, I want to show you something." And she brings her down to like look in the cabinet of the ant farm. I'm like, okay, what happened to the ant farm? Are the ants missing? What's going on? But then the sister was like, "No, some of them escaped. And look at the ants. I poked the holes." And they were like, "Oh, cool. I forgot to do that." And it was like a whole thing. And I'm thinking, okay, what is it going to be? What's going to happen? This is what happened. This is what happened. Well, she did it, but then it was never done. And then the sister and mom did it again. They did it again. That's definitely got to be some weird timeline crossing right there. That's all I got for that. What else would it be? What? This was a really cool one. Realm Leaping and Forgotten Family. Hi, Auntie Matrix. Hi! I've been watching your videos for about a year now, and it's taken a lot to actually share mine. When these happened, I thought I had finally snapped. It took my husband about a month to convince me that I was real again, so here goes. Oh my God. November of 2022, I was working night shift at a local nursing home. One day as I was sleeping for work that night, I began to have this very unusual dream. I was back as a teenager in high school, but there were hybrid people and different species of people. As I was looking at all of these people in a place that I didn't recognize, I noticed that all of them had charts by them, like the old-time spy movies where they would have the contact lens that showed you who your target was. As I sat down at a lunch table, I started realizing that I didn't look like anybody there. They started catching on to that, and the last thing I remember was just running through the school, and eventually they caught up to me. When I woke up, I was in an unfamiliar place again, but it was more of a facility, like a hospital, and it had a wraparound driveway, like the big fancy houses that you see in the movies, and it was a beautiful garden out front. The building was made of old gray stone and looked straight out of a movie. I got up and started roaming the halls, and I finally found doors. It was the entry to a den that led outside. As I wandered outside, I became overwhelmed with this intense level of fear. I felt like something was chasing me or something was out to get me, so I ran across the stone steps down through the gravel and onto the grass. Then my point of view switched and I was watching myself run from ahead. I turned to look back at the building and everything went black. I woke up again, back in the same bed that I had just awoken from. I started screaming in fear. There was somebody standing over me, a nurse who looked to be from about the 70s, white uniform, white hat with black curled hair and chin length. I kept yelling to her, "I don't belong here. What am I doing here? They're not from here. I'm not from here." She whispered, "Shh," to me, then gave me a shot where everything went black again. I woke up at home in my own bed just before my alarm was supposed to go off. I felt disoriented and completely confused as to what had just happened. I made the drive to work. I noticed that the town was in total blackout. No stoplights were working, no streetlights, just total darkness. There weren't even any cars on the road besides mine. It was very unusual. It took me a good 2 to 3 days to convince myself that the world was real and that I was alive. Oh my God, that is so crazy. You know what? I feel like when we're dreaming, we're actually like astral traveling. We're traveling around, right? So maybe where you were, like you traveled somewhere and you knew you weren't supposed to be there for whatever reason. And then you were telling the nurse like, "I'm not supposed to be here." And the nurse, the dream nurse lady was like, "All right, send her back." I don't know. It's so weird, but I can see how it would take you a really long time to like know that you were real and the world was real. And why was everything in like a complete major blackout when you woke up? That's really weird. Did you short everything when you like came back from your dream? When did the power go out? Do you know exactly when the power went out? That would be very interesting if like you were the cause of it somehow. Imagine. Wait, there's a bonus small little story. Last summer, I was in the Burger King drive-thru with my husband and 3 kids, and I was looking out the window waiting for the next car to pull up. I looked at a tree, and then suddenly I was back to being 17 in my old car with nobody else in it. The sun, the weather, even the car was different. I drove a Scion TC at 17, and now I drive a Dodge Journey. For a brief second, everything felt unreal. My husband, my kids. Then just as quick as it came, it was gone, and I was back with my husband and kids. Again? This is reminding me of, oh my God, what's her name? She's a Marvel character. I feel like her name is America, but like her name, she has that big star and she travels through all the multiverses. She was just in Doctor Strange, right? She was in the last Doctor Strange movie, I think. But remember, she couldn't control it and she would just like into another place. That's what that's reminding me of. Maybe like you can't control your souls just everywhere. I don't know, guys. Am I a time traveler? Hi, Auntie Matrix. Hi. I want to share my story. This is the very first time I speak about it. I apologize since English is not my first language. No worries. Back when I was 14, I lived in a small town in Guatemala City. My parents owned a bakery in my town, and it was pretty much the best around. We always had this lady buying from us. I never knew her name, but she bought the same type of sweet bread. I remember it since it was my favorite bread. She had brown, long, wavy hair, and she would always wear her wedding ring on her middle finger. That's interesting. We stopped seeing her after she got sick. Her daughter was an American citizen, so she came back from the States to look after her. She had long, black curly hair, long eyelashes, and everyone called her Ari, and everyone in town was happy to see her, although I had no recollection of her before. She was in college at the time. I remember her so vividly since she got this type of elf ear on her right ear, like a pointy ear that I thought was nice. I saw her a few times. A few months after that, the lady got better but decided to move to the U.S. near her daughter. She would always tell me, "You remind me of a young me," or something along those lines. I never saw her again, and I never thought anything of it. That was until my now husband proposed. The ring looked so familiar, but I just thought it was a coincidence, so I let it go. A few years after that, my daughter was born. We called her Arwen, since The Lord of the Rings is my favorite movie. When I saw my daughter, that's when all of my memories came back. She was born with the same type of elf ear on her right ear. I saw my hand and I remember the engagement ring that the lady wore all the time. I had it on my left middle finger because it was too big and never got it resized. I started to freak out, but I never said anything. My parents moved, so they don't own the bakery anymore, but I asked them if they remembered the lady's name. They don't even remember the lady or her daughter or anything related to her, and we have had no contact with our old town. The weirdest thing was when my daughter started saying her name. She started saying Ari because she can't pronounce Arwen, so everyone calls her that now. I don't know what to think. The sweetbread, I had always had long, wavy brown hair. I wear my engagement ring on my middle finger. We call my daughter Ari. She was born with one elf ear. Oh, and I forgot to mention, she is an American citizen. My daughter also has curly hair and long lashes. Am I crazy? Is this just pure coincidence? This is what I mean with the elf ear. Picture taken from the internet. Okay, so this is not her daughter's actual ear. This is the elf ear. You are not crazy. We believe you. It can't be pure coincidence. If that's pure coincidence, like that's a really big fucking coincidence, and somebody messed up. If your parents don't remember, I wonder if you're not remembering from this life, like maybe you're remembering yourself from a past life, from someone else's point of view. Does that make any sense? Maybe that's what you're remembering? Or maybe you are a time traveler and like that was you traveling back to like hang out? I don't know. That's so crazy. That is so crazy. What a cool story. Thank you so much for sharing that. Messengers from Heaven. Hi, Auntie Matrix. Hi! I watch your videos all the time and try to catch up on the older ones when I have the time. Story number 266 really heavily reminded me of myself. I have several stories of my own, but most are short and not much to tell. But this is a long one. I know how much we all love the long ones, LOL, and it's kind of like a 3-in-1. It's important to know that I have very hyper-realistic and lucid dreams. Usually it's stuff like getting ready for work, only for my alarm to go off at a weird time in the flow of the events for me to realize that I wasn't awake. Or even out-of-body experiences where I can fly or float around and see what's actually happening in real time. Although that's a lot harder for me to do, especially now as an adult, but that's a story for another time. But sometimes when I have dreams like this, it's a message of some kind, and I can always tell the difference. I've had warnings of loved ones about to pass, illnesses, as well as guidance through life situations, but they are always different, almost like they're from a different messenger, but I almost never get to know who the messenger is. A little over a year ago, I had one of these dreams where I was standing outside of a wrought iron gate, and inside the gate was my grandpa who had passed away, holding a baby, greeting my dad. They both looked like younger versions of themselves, and the baby I just knew was the baby I had miscarried a few years earlier. I couldn't enter the gate, and I knew that I wasn't meant to. I couldn't hear anything from the other side of the gate either, so I couldn't tell what was being said, but they were very happy. I felt a hand on my shoulder turning me away, and I woke up in a cold sweat. My dad passed away about 6 months later. It was very sudden and unexpected. He had a heart attack at work and survived just long enough for my mom to get to the hospital. The doctors decided to stop CPR after about 40 minutes because his heart just wouldn't beat on its own, and he would have had severe brain damage if they did keep going and managed to bring him back. His last words were to my mom a very quiet, "I love you." That was at 2 o'clock in the afternoon. My older brother delivered their first baby, a sweet, healthy boy, almost exactly 12 hours later at 2:30 a.m. They had decided to name the baby after my dad as well as after her stepdad. It was very sweet. The last part of the story happened the night after the funeral. My sister and I and our kids all spent the night at my mom's house so she wouldn't be alone. When I went to bed, I had the most hyper-realistic lucid dream I've ever had, and I still remember every detail to this day, and it still brings me a sense of peace whenever I think about it. In my dream, I was in a classroom, like a giant college type of classroom, with 30 tables that would each seat 2 people. The room itself was nondescript in terms of what the class was, but the building had almost an 80s vibe in terms of construction. I couldn't make out any of the other students, but it didn't matter since they were all leaving the room anyway. The teacher asked me to stay when I got up to leave. When I looked up, it was my dad. Dressed like he would any other day, jeans, a plain gray t-shirt, and the dad shoes, TM. What's the dad shoes, TM? I walked up to him and I said, "You weren't a teacher." He responded, "No, I wasn't, but you learned a lot, didn't you?" I just nodded and said, "Yeah, I did." We hugged each other and I said, "I'll see you tomorrow." But as I walked out of the classroom, he waved to me and said, "It won't be tomorrow for you." I woke up in tears, but I wasn't sad anymore. I felt very comforted. When I told my mom about my dream, she told me that my dad had gone to college to be a teacher and always wanted to pursue it as a career, but decided not to because he needed something that would make more money for our family. Thank you for taking the time to read my story. It means a lot to have a place to share it. Oh my goodness, I love that your dad visited you in your dream. I love that you said, "I'll see you tomorrow," and he was like, it won't be tomorrow for you because time is different, because time isn't real, you know? That was a beautiful story. Thank you so much for sharing that. Staying in a haunted beach house. Hi, Auntie Matrix. Hi! I'm new to your channel, but I knew as soon as I had heard a couple of stories from you, but I had the perfect one. When I was 14 years old, we were on a family vacation. It was me, my friend Morgan, who was my age, my mom, my little brother, my mom's friend, and her 2 sons. All of the kids, except for Morgan and I, were very little, between 2 and 7 years old. We were going to Folly Beach, South Carolina. It's very close to Charleston. It was my first time going there, but it's my mom's favorite place to vacation, so now I've probably been there 15 times. It's a small beach town, very hippie-like. My mom and my little brother shared a bedroom, and me and my friend and my mom's friend and her 2 sons shared a bedroom. There were 2 beds in our bedroom, so Morgan and I shared a bed, and on the other far side of the room, my mom's friend and her 2 sons shared a bed. The beach house was nice. It was right on the beach, and it was pretty spacious despite only having 2 rooms. It was very old, though, you could tell, but it definitely had an old beach house charm. We liked the house. It was nice. On the very first night, Morgan and I stayed up later than everybody else, but we had to turn off the TV and be quiet because we were sharing a room with my mom's friend and her sons. So Morgan and I were scrolling on our phones and whispering, and as soon as we decided to go to bed, things started happening. We heard whistling right beside our heads. It was loud. Whistling? The whistling sounded like what an old sailor would whistle out on a fishing boat, an old sailor's tune. We thought that maybe someone was outside our window, so we pulled up the blinds and looked, and there was no one. So that was weird. We were on an old iron metal bed, and immediately the bed started making sounds. It was like something was hitting the bed with a butter knife or something, making it go ting, 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 getting louder and louder and getting closer to where our heads were laying. We were starting to really freak out, and then the TV turned on. The TV was right in front of our bed, and when it turned on to nothing but static, and it was turned up so loud as it will go. Then the door in our bedroom that led into the kitchen opened, and the kitchen light was flickering on and off over and over, and all of these things were happening at the same time. Then we heard an old man's voice. He didn't say anything. He was just making noises, and it was extremely scary. Oh my God, I have goosebumps. We were absolutely scared to death and petrified with fear. I could not move. I was so scared to get up. So I got my phone and called my mom and begged her to come into our bedroom. When she came in there, all of the things stopped. She made it clear that she did not believe me, and she said I was trying to ruin the trip. Mind you, I was a teenager, and my mom and I did not get along great at the time, so I can't fault her for thinking that. She told us to go to bed and to stop. Wait, but when the TV turned on, did it not wake up your mom's friend and the sons in the bed next to you? We finally fell asleep after the things happening eventually stopped. I talked to my mom about it the next day, and I was so scared and crying, telling her I did not want to stay there another night. Mind you, we were staying there for a week, and it was just her first night. My mom made it clear she did not believe us, so Morgan and I were scared to death. The following night, everything happened again. All the same things, plus some new things. It never stopped the whole trip. Finally, when it was our last day and we loaded up in the van to drive home, my mom told me that she called the woman who owned the rental company that we got the house from. The woman who owned the rental company told my mom that she gets complaints of the house being haunted all the time. My mom said she did not want to tell us because she didn't want to freak us out even more, but it felt amazing knowing that my mom believed me in the end. Apparently, an old man had lived in that house for like 45 years, and he had just passed away about 10 years prior to us staying there. It had been quickly turned into a rental after he passed away, and he was an old fisherman. He was the old sailor whistling the sailor's tune. But based on the interactions that he had with us, it let us know that he was not a nice spirit. He wasn't just trying to make his presence known, he was trying to terrify us. And also the fact that he only made his presence known to me and Morgan, the 2 teenage girls, and not the adults, let me know that he was not nice. His intention was to scare us, and he definitely did. He wanted you out of his house. Woo-hoo! That was a good one! I'm so glad your mom finally believed you, though. And I'm so glad that you got confirmation. That must have felt so good. That concludes our creepy compilation for today. If you have a story that you want to share, you can send it to auntiematrix@gmail.com. You can find my merch, my Discord, and all my other links at tessicavision.com. We also hang out and read stories live here on YouTube and on TikTok, so look out for that. And remember, we believe you. If you want to keep it going here, you can check out this video or this playlist.